How is it going? Happy Sunday, happy Easter to everyone that celebrates. I hope everyone is doing well. Let me know if my audio is coming in clear. Let me know what city, state, country you guys are tuning in from. And hopefully I've got my streaming set up all good to go. We got some breaking news to cover today. And I appreciate everyone joining me in the chat early here to cover it. We got quite the schedule actually to talk about today. Let me just make sure that my lag is okay on the stream. And I think it should be, but someone let me know in the comments. Okay, so agenda for the day. Okay, it's coming in clear. Awesome, thank you. So agenda for the day. First of all, we got some breaking news coming out of Giga Shanghai, and actually, let's just cut to the chase. Let's just go to there first, shall we? All good. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that in the chat. So we got this news a couple of days ago. Obviously, Elon will be in China this weekend. Possible stop at Giga Shanghai. He'll be traveling with Tom Zhu. Now, I don't know if Elon's in China just yet, but we got this breaking news out of Tesla Asia Twitter today and retweeted and syndicated by Sawyer. Tesla, breaking, will build a Megafactory, a Megapack factory in Shanghai, Chinese state outlet reported on Sunday. Construction will begin in Q3 and start production in Q2 of 2024. The signing ceremony was in Shanghai. The factory will initially produce 10,000 megapacks per year, potentially generating over 20 billion. Now, I think actually 20 billion is a bit conservative. I saw Matt Smith from Good Soil throw out $40 billion as his general first full year of production revenue. So looking very good. Let me read off some city, state, countries here as I see everything populating here. Driving to Studio City, California. Tony, drive safe. North Carolina, Norway. How's it going? Royce, DRK, Brooklyn. Sanju, how's it going? Thank you. Appreciate that. Geneva, Illinois. In Tokyo, Hadouken says, Japan right now, watching at 3 a.m. in the morning. Hadouken, shout out to you, man. Wow. Well, I hope you enjoy Japan. I have... Actually, it's funny. I know two people that have independently went to Japan in the last month. So apparently it's a hotspot right now. Happy Easter. Thank you, Michael. You as well. Trinity, Florida. Tony, can't wait to hear about FSTV 11. St. Thomas, Ontario. Sweden, of course. Maybe how's it going? Stig, hit the like. Appreciate that, Stig. Yes, hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're new. Enjoy the content. We got a lot to dive into with this. But I want to call out everyone that's joining us on the stream today. Calgary, Canada. How's it going? Local. London, UK. Sanju, of course. Matt says, I bet a lot of them will be exported to Australia. That's actually a pretty good point. And their economy is actually doing really well with the initial project that Tesla did out of there, 4 or 5 years ago. 40 billion. Yes, 40 billion was the rumored rate. And I'll try to pull up the tweet here in a second. Missouri. Chris, local from Vancouver. Shout out to you, Chris. Atlanta, Hamburg. Manisha is apparently coming from my mom's house. Okay, there you go. Yashu and Juju family from South Africa. Packer, shout out to you. I'll be flying over Denmark today. Very nice. Hi from the UK. Love Japan, Panama, Ontario, Antarctica in the house. Gabby, shout out to you. India, Atlantic, Florida. Is that a real city? You get good Juju merch in Marichek. Hopefully I pronounced Marichek right. A blessed Easter to all you as well. State College, Pennsylvania, Antarctica. Well, it's hard to believe, but hey, we've had someone from Greenland, right? We had someone from Greenland a couple months ago, and we had someone from Nunavut like 2 weeks ago. So at this point, I do not doubt it. At this point, I really don't doubt it. Montreal, Bavaria, Nicaragua. Awesome. Okay, let's get into it. I appreciate everyone. And if you're watching on replay, throw in the comments where you guys are tuning in from. I always go back and read all the comments to every single one of the videos, but especially the live streams to see where people are tuning in from. Okay, so this news is quite interesting, of course, Megapack news, right? And once ramped, Gary Black tweets, this will effectively double Tesla's Megapack capacity to 20,000 per year. This could be worth about $50 billion of new revenue. So that's where the kind of 20 to 50 billion-ish comes from. And then he says plus $15 a year, $15 billion a year of profit. That relates to about $3 per year EPS. That's quite big, right? And of course, this factory hasn't been built yet. We don't entirely know exactly how long it might take. But here's the good thing. what other location than China stays on timelines? And if not, beats timelines. What gets announced in China, especially what we've seen here with Shanghai, with Tesla's history, gives me confidence that these timelines actually mean something. No offense, because we know we've kind of been burnt with the expectations of Berlin and Austin, right? But when China comes out and China says they're going to do something with manufacturing, with factory building, they have the labor and they can get the manpower in place to do. They can move mountains, right? That's why I actually quite I'm actually more excited than I would be. Let's say if this was like even a candid piece of news. Oh, but to be fair, we did get that Canadian Megapack factory or that Megapack being built out for that project in Quebec not too long ago either. But I'm excited for this. And what's interesting is how few analysts I think really even have energy baked in to the general equation. So I guess we'll see, but I really don't think a lot of them do. And to be fair, even myself with my back of the napkin math, I don't have a lot of energy experience or modeling. So I just kind of look at that as like almost a cherry on top. But to be fair, this is turning into the cake itself. Bulgaria, Melbourne Beach. Cindy, how's it going? Happy Easter to you too from Australia. Berkshire. Is this Friday? I had my orange. Grab you guys, folks. It's Sunday morning. It's Easter morning. Grab a coffee. Might be a little bit too early for Juju, but to be fair, it never is. But for me, I'm gonna finish my coffee before I get to the Juju. Marco, how's it going? Mike from San Diego. Shout out to you, Mike. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yes, Tesla China delivers. This is the thing. So I'm excited about this in general. Whoops, what did I click on by accident there? I'm excited about this in general. I think, of course, this is going to be great for the bottom line for Tesla. I see some comments, by the way, on this on Twitter of just general cynicism from people saying, why are we essentially helping China become more energy independent, right? There's that degree of kind of rift, geopolitically speaking, that I'm seeing in the comments on Twitter of some people saying. And I guess we're open to that debate. We can have that intellectual debate if we want to be honest about it. But I do wonder how many of these will be exported as well. That we don't know. And here's the Reuters report that I'll pull up here. So it'll break ground in the third quarter, complementing a huge existing Shanghai obviously plant that's making EVs at the moment. So about 40 gigawatt hours of energy storage is to be sold globally. Let's see anything else here. So here's my guess. I guess Elon is essentially coming here to give congrats. He wasn't in the photo op. Maybe he's just coming to just check up on things. It's been several years, I think, since he's been in China. Unless someone wants to correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think it's been some time. But remember, of course, Tesla currently has a Megafactory in Lathrop, California, capable of producing 10,000 megapacks per year. So remember, there's a whole debate about, are they actually building 10,000 per year, or is that their capacity once they're fully ramped? It's been a hot topic, but here's my bottom line with that. Let's see it flow through earnings before I start, before we start counting the chickens. Let's let the eggs hatch. Okay. That's just where I am with it. Yeah. So Messi, there was that, I'm going to have to pull this up later, but I think this is from like December, right? I think I was streaming before the new year and we got that little project from some hydro, interprovincial partnership with Tesla. But we'll see. Mile Yellow in Vancouver. Shout out to you. Awesome. Well, the weather's not really great here, but hopefully you enjoy it. Yeah, maybe it's a requirement for the mined materials to stay in China. Maybe there is. I guess we'll find out. But here's also the thing, right? Tesla can worry about the amount of cars sold, or it could just use the batteries elsewhere, right? At the end of the day, the game isn't necessarily about transportation. It's about sustainable energy. And if they can relay some of these batteries from cars to Megapacks, at the end of the day, and I think the Megapacks actually have a greater margin anyways, but at the end of the day, kind of the main limiting factor here. Shout out Jordan Gieske. I feel like every time I talk about batteries, I just throw in limiting factor by accident. But that is such a good name for it, right? That is the limiting factor at the end of the day. So we can, Tesla can make cars with this. Tesla can make Megapacks with this. At the end of the day, the batteries are what matters, right? Yes. 4680s must be solved. So here's the other thing, right? So we got some news about price reductions not too long ago. And you'll see here, judging by the stock price, the market did not like the news that we got about price reductions. Now we got the price reduction news. Pardon me. The market didn't like the production delivery report that we talked about last week. And then on to boot, this weekend we got price reduction news, and that sparked a hot debate now in the general Tesla investor community about Tesla advertising. Okay, and I want to dedicate some time to this, and I'll open this up to debate, and I'll throw the StreamYard link in here, but I'll just give my 2 cents for it first. Here's my general frustration. Okay. My general frustration is I think there's a group of Tesla investors that fail to see that Tesla can do anything wrong. And I think that's not a healthy area to come at the general investor ship from. Because at the end of the day, companies do wrong things all the time strategically. Of course, this is not to say that you and I are smarter than the people running Tesla. That's a different story. But there seems to be a cutting off of debate that I'm seeing in kind of the Tesla community of people saying, if you're even debating this, you're an idiot, right? And I think we got to be careful with that, because the last thing we want to do is cut off healthy debate. And the debate that I'm talking about is advertising. Okay, so when price cuts happen this weekend, albeit not massive, right? Not massive price cuts, but still price cuts. If you look at that on the bottom line, there's a group of people that are saying, look, this is not because of falling demand. This is because Tesla is so committed to the mission that when they have cost reductions, they're passing that on to consumers. Look, for the most part, I think that's baloney. When Tesla can, they will, and they should use their purchase or their pricing power to price cars at what market demand is, and I think they've done that. The recent price cuts that we've seen are not some sort of they're not some sort of benevolent move here to lower costs for consumers. It's quite literally because they need to sell more of these units. Now, that's not a bad thing. At the end of the day, I'm actually quite happy that Tesla is driving down these costs and bringing them to where they were pre-COVID. Because look, you guys know my frustration with Tesla cars. For the last 2 years, I've been harping on how freaking expensive they are, especially entry-level Model 3s, and how nuts it is for me to go out and recommend the Model 3 to someone that just can't spend 65,000 Canadian dollars on an entry-level car. And so, I've had this frustration. But what I don't understand is people's unwillingness to talk about spending 10 to 20 to 30 to 50 million dollars, which I know is a lot of money in the absolute value of things. But for Tesla, it's really a drop in the bucket, right? $50 million for Tesla. Like, Tesla bought $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Okay. Let's move on from this for a second. But if Tesla spent $50 million on ads, and let's say specifically educational type ads, running their safety videos to people that, number one, don't like Tesla, right? There's a handful of people out there that just walk and live and go about their daily awesome lives, and they don't care about Tesla. And do you know what? When someone mentions Tesla, they kind of have a bad negative reaction immediately to it for whatever reason. Those people are not going to go out and look at Tesla videos on their own accord. It's not going to happen. Okay. But number two, there's a handful of people, a good percentage of people that don't even know what Tesla is. Let's be honest. Okay. And if we don't think that there's a percentage of people out there that's actually substantial that don't even know how Teslas or EVs work, I think we're living in a bubble a little bit, right? You and I are living in this EV bubble. And I was reminded by this. I think actually Christian tweeted this out, and I was reminded of this story. I went to the supercharging station, probably a year and a half ago. I think it was about, a couple months into my new ownership of the Model 3. I'm in Richmond. I'm plugging this thing in. I'm standing outside of it. As a new car owner, I'm taking photos of the car. I'm trying to act all cool. No one is there, right? Like it's a 20 stall supercharger. I'm the only one there. I'm just trying to see how this car looks like in the night angle. And then I had this old couple approach me coming out of the mall, and they asked me, like, what is this whole station about? Like, what are all these stalls about? And I'm like, oh, these are charging stations for Teslas. And they're like, what are Teslas? And I kid you not, in that moment, I was kind of like, damn, I'm living in this weird bubble that I've created that is not my fault. But again, it's a good reminder that not everyone knows everything about EVs and Teslas the way that you and I do. And so I think education is important. I think throwing what matters to people, and what matters to people is usually two things: cost and safety. I think leading with safety is probably the better objective. And I'm not saying give up the money to, let's say, insert CNBC TV show. What if you ran YouTube ads? What if you ran, Facebook ads? What if you ran Twitter ads, even geared at people that have no idea what Tesla is about and Tesla's safety advantage, right? This is what I'm talking about when I say advertise. We talk about retargeting. Tesla can easily just launch an ad campaign that retargets folks that have reached the checkout page for Tesla but did not actually purchase, And we talk about price drops. Price drops, for the most part, really cost Tesla a lot in the long term. Of course, we know this. And on top of that, you guys know I've retweeted this as well, and I'll pull it up here on my Twitter feed. Hold on one second. We know what happens when people spend money on advertising. Oh, well, that's a bit too big. Who made this chart, folks? This is Tesla vehicle gross orders in the US, the Super Bowl effect. Here's the day after the Super Bowl. Tesla quite literally made this chart, okay? I didn't make this. No one else made it. This is Tesla telling me and telling you this is the effect of advertising EVs as a whole, okay? This is the effect of advertising as a whole. And so that's it. That's my entire point. And I think we should have that debate. In the grand scheme, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Tesla can continue to lower prices, but dedicate a little bit to education. And I get it. Look, I'll speak to the other side now. There's, if I'm Elon and I've built a $600 billion company off of zero, zilch, zip, nada dollars of media buying, man, that is such an incredible feat. Why would I want to start now? Okay. I honestly, I really get that. And this is coming from a media buyer. I'm telling you straight up. If I built a $600 billion organization and I spent $0 on advertising, I would take that to the moon and back, that accomplishment. It is absolutely crazy, right? The closest company that has spent $0 on advertising might be Sriracha, right? And they're nowhere close to a $600 billion market cap company, right? So my point here is that you can have your cake and eat it too. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We don't have to lambaste people that talk about advertising. But I do understand the other side of the argument. But I'm throwing out mine, and I hope you can understand mine as well. A little bit goes a long way. This is proof from Tesla in and of itself. If anyone wants to say advertising doesn't work, well, then tell that to Tesla, who showed this slide in their earnings report, showing the effect of advertising the day after the Super Bowl. If you educate the market wants to learn more. If the market isn't even aware of who you are, they can't buy from you. Okay? Troy says, let's not call it advertising. Let's call it education. I like it. Sure. Whatever semantics we want to go to. I think I saw a question from Harry. You must recognize that the entire auto market is contracting. No marketing will help with that. Well, it's about market share. The entire aggregate market might be shrinking because interest rates are high. People are buying less new cars. But the market share that you can get can be even more disproportionately in your favor. And I get that it's disproportionately in Tesla's favor right now, and I quite like that. That's not my point. My point is we can do even more. And what's $10 million, right? $10 million for Tesla, that can have a large effect in terms of media buying. I'll tell you that right now, $10 to $50 million per year used strategically on a retargeting audience, that can do a lot of damage, right? And why not test it? That's really it. And yeah, I'm not talking about the classic. This is the thing. I'm not talking about the classic legacy auto random Jeep Grand Cherokee running through the forest and mudslinging on the camera and, get yours for 2% financing over a 900 month term. No, I'm not talking about one of those types of ads. I'm quite literally talking about, what if Tesla just ran the safety videos it has, those little 1 or 2 minutes, and it ran them as YouTube in-feed ads for people that have visited Tesla sites but didn't buy. There's ways to be strategic here that I think we should be able to talk about. Okay. Anyways, I've given up my my feelings here on the situation. Feel free to come on to stream. I just threw up the StreamYard link here in the chat. If you want to come on and talk about it, disagree with me, that's totally fine. I'm here to have that conversation. Okay, let's move on in terms of news, though, because we got a lot to talk about with Master Plan Part 3 coming out. Now, look, here's the thing with Master Plan Part 3. I'm an idiot, right? So a lot of this stuff is quite over my head, but a few general comments I'll have, right? This is this isn't written from Elon in the same way that the other master plans almost are, right? It's not a note or a journal entry. This is very much an academic, researched type of master plan, I guess. I was going to say a strategy plan, but master plan, right? There's a lot about heat sinks, heat pumps, the general aggregate market. It's hard to tell what Tesla is speaking to in terms of what just they're going to do and what they think the market is going to do, right? And I think that's good because that's inviting in the general population to see where the world is headed, right? And I have a few tweets here instead of boring everyone and going through all of this, because quite honestly, a lot of this does go over my head anyways. You guys know I'm not that smart. So Tesla, and a couple pieces of notes here. Sawyer says Tesla's in their newly released Master Plan Part 3 report that the compact EV will have a 53 kilowatt battery. Now, this slide I thought was quite interesting. Obviously, the compact is going to be LFP. This is the estimated pack size. The mid-size, 75. Now, what I found interesting was the Cybertruck. Where is it? Cybertruck is going to be 100 kilowatt hours. Actually, quite... yeah, I think white paper is actually a better term. But it's 100 kilowatts. That's it. So I'm very curious to see what pricing looks like on this. It's going to be interesting. But I mean, the global fleet, this is how many vehicle sales they estimate as a whole. And again, these are all aggregate global numbers, which I think Tesla has made the concerted effort to shift in. I think they've shifted from company that is leading the charge to company that is trying to lead the charge for others to follow. I think there's a nuanced difference there. And I think that is quite important because they're inviting people to come and say, look, this is where the world is headed. We're not going to do this by ourselves. We can't do this by ourselves. We need help. And this is what the vision is. Get on board with it. Right. And I think Tesla is smart enough to realize that as a general company, that if, this vision to come true, Tesla's not, Tesla building 89 million cars a year. Like, come on, So I think Tesla is quite, it's quite impressive the way that they're phrasing a lot of their master plan to gear to the general industry. And hopefully a lot of these legacy auto companies that do want to survive in the EV age do take this quite seriously, I think. So a couple of points about, just quickly, back about advertising. And people talk about, okay, well, if Tesla does advertise, right? Tesla advertises today, all the media runs with the FUD. And I get it, to a degree, all PR is good PR for a company in general. I get that. But there's a degree of people that just don't care enough to research. And I think for those people, it should be quite easy for them to get to the real info, and they're not going to seek that out. And the bigger point I want to just make to just tie the bow on this is that what if Tesla wants to sell 20 million cars in 2030? Why do we need any headwinds for that? Why not just nip it in the bud today, Start the education campaign. So then when it comes time to 2030, Tesla has no headwinds and in fact probably has tailwinds. Why not make it easier on ourselves to sell that many cars? Because that's a shitload of cars that we have that Tesla has planned to sell in 2030, 2031, let's say, because of COVID. So anyways, Matt says they're stating the obvious and seeing if anyone bites or if they get a monopoly. Okay. Master plan. Let OEMs advertise on Tesla will benefit for free. Well, there's a degree of that already happening for sure. I think Tesla should be able to write their own story. DRK says, I was supposed to read Master Plan this weekend, but I've been watching videos about it. Have downloaded it, though. Now, here's my thing with the Master Plan. This is a commitment, to be able to First of all, even if I read this, all, word for word, like, what percentage of this would I actually understand? So I actually like your approach quite a lot, DRK, and it's an approach I don't use often. I'll be honest. I purposely, and here's a little inside secret from on my end, I don't like to watch too many, kind of the keyword, the qualifying word here, too many Tesla videos. Of course, if I can, I will dedicate a lot of my time to watching them. I have to restrain, because the last thing I want as someone that comes up and talks about Tesla is to just spit out the same stuff that I'm hearing. And that's actually an approach that when I started the channel, I was like, I can't be just spitting out the same stuff, because that's, first of all, it's not of value to anyone, but also I'm not thinking for myself. So I have to really restrain on watching a lot of Tesla videos, binging on them like I do, or like I have a problem of doing historically, because I want to be able to speak from it from my own perspective and have a different perspective than someone. And maybe I cover something that someone missed, but because I didn't actually listen to their thoughts, I can actually speak to that perfectly. So before I talk about it, I want to not watch stuff. So that's kind of the issue I have. But with something like this, with the master plan, part 3, this is almost an academic paper type of situation here, right? Hydrogen storage, charging and discharging, figures here, energy storage, technologies evaluated. Like, there's a lot to chew on here. And the question is, I don't have the teeth for all of this, right? So it's almost like I have to. Crest says, I read a lot of it, only understood a small percentage. Ye says, this master plan isn't for investors. I think it's for headhunting purposes. People are interested to work at Tesla. That's a really good point, actually. I think it might be for recruiting, but I'm secretly also hoping that it's also for leading the charge for the industry as well. Harry says, there's a reason Tesla management is not hyping Cybertruck. We're in the wrong economic environment for it. Lower your expectations. My expectations are quite low. And actually, I'll ask this of everyone in the chat. Throw in your month and year of when you think the first Cybertruck deliveries will take place. Throw it in the chat. Throw that in the chat, and I'll wait before I give my answer. Maybe you guys already know it because you guys listen to me. But throw it in the chat. I think it might have changed since the last time we talked. Let's hear when you guys think Cybertruck deliveries will start. Month and year. Month and year. Digital says August. I'm guessing you mean this year. That would be quite splendid. Like, that would be amazing. December 2023. August 2023. Okay. September this year, September, October. Ooh, you guys, I think we're September 2023, September. Oh, Richard, how's it going? Not in legal advice. Awesome YouTube channel. Go check them out. September 6th. Very specific. I like it. February of next year, October of this year, first to San Diego in November 2023, July 4th. Royce, I'm sure that you're probably hinting at this. That was my original guess, right? July of this year, but that was when I was younger and more naive. My expectations are now by the end of the year, December 2023. That's my guess. September of this year, first Cybertruck will be $120,000 out the door and delivered to executives in Q3. 120. Well, that'll probably be the tri motor. I think and they'll have to reprice that massively up, right? So November of this year. First Cybertruck of July this year. Man, you guys are still very bullish on this timeline thing. November, August, March. Hold on. David. November, Serial number 1 for Elon. I think that's quite deserved. First delivery. Okay, so here's the general consensus I'm getting, right? Here's the general consensus I'm getting. Everyone is very bullish on timeline. Still, I'm very surprised by this. Well, will I stream earnings call? So no, a little bit of a change up going forward for this quarter. I'm not going to be streaming live for earnings and Power Hour like I have done for the last few years. I'm going to be doing a debrief, probably live stream or streaming a premiered video of me cutting down everything that's important from the earnings call, just because I'll be in the office and I'll have to catch up on it on my off time. So yeah, no live stream this earnings call, but I might be joining Farzad's live stream during that stream at some point. So you probably will catch me on there. So you know what? Imagine 2026 Christmas. In time for Independence Day would be nice. Shout for. Wait, did Farzad steal this from me? Because he heard this from me 100%. I said July 4th would be awesome. I said that when I was younger and more naive 6 months ago. If he is running with this, I need to have a conversation with him because that was my original guess. And as you guys know, no one can guess what I've guessed before. That's just not fair. We're gonna have to talk about that offline. Farzad, if you're watching. You know what? You guys are still very bullish. Crest says, if Elon's walked the entire Cybertruck line, can it still be 6 months from production? Good question. Now, I was going to say, do we know if it's past safety tests already? Do we know that? We know that the design just got finalized, a couple months ago, if that, right? I don't know. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. You know, it's something that I wish I am incorrect on. Like, I wish we look back on this and the summer and Cybertrucks are flying everywhere. I'm like, amazing, right? But the more I just sniff, I'm just getting a sniff of, yeah, this is going to be later this year. That's just my guess. Price is Right rules. Well, we talked about the Cybertruck crash test, right, last year. But here's the thing with the Cybertruck crash test. A lot of you guys think that actually it was not a fake crash test, and it was a 4D chess move by Tesla to announce it on April 1st. Everyone thinks it's fake. They don't show the ending from it. Everyone thinks it's fake. And then they come out and they say, oh, by the way, that was the real crash test video. We just didn't show you the end of it. At this point, I don't know, and to be fair, I really don't want to have to play 4D chess anymore. I just want this thing out, right? I'm actually quite excited. I'm quite excited about this. So, yeah, I did. No kidding. Okay, let's watch. So I've teed up a couple of videos here before we get into it. Okay, this is Bernstein's Tony Sacconaghi on CNBC talking about Tesla demand shrinking, and it's not feeling fantastic right now. Let's have a listen to what he has to say. Let me know if my audio is coming in clear.
Tesla will need to lower prices even more this year to hit volume targets. Bernstein analyst Tony Sacconaghi joins us now with an underperform rating, $150 price target on Tesla. Tony, why? It doesn't look like they have much of a demand problem here.
Good morning, Sarah. Well, look, I'm not so sure that that demand is really strong. If we look at what happened, they cut prices materially in January up to 20%, and sequential growth was 4% the last couple of years.
Quick note I'm going to make on the 20% price cut, right? 20% price cut that he just said there. Here's what happened. Tesla increased prices to a point where it was actually questionable that if anyone was actually materially buying Teslas at this price, or that everyone that was taking deliveries based on the price that they reserved at 2 months ago. So the question isn't, of course, if you look at it just from an absolute nominal level, Tesla has cut prices from that highest point down to where they are today, which, by the way, is still higher than pre-COVID in a lot of cases. But here's the big but. How many people actually bought at that elevated level of Tesla price? Like, it could very well be that everyone that was taking deliveries based on last month's prices or 2 months prices ago, and that 20% highest all-time high price very few people actually reserved at that price, and very few people actually closed at that price. Meaning, if you look at annual average selling price this quarter from this earnings report that's going to come out here in a couple weeks, are we actually going to see a massive drop in ASPs, aka 20%, let's say? And that's the $1 million question that we're seeing. And I think we should be careful with saying that that's for sure because Tesla lowered their prices from the nominal level of absolute of 20% down. Are we actually going to see that with ASPs? And if we don't, margin is going to be the big kicker, right? The street's going to focus on gross margin. We already know that they're optimizing for EBITDA margin. There's going to be that debate. But man, if 20% or more gross margin comes up this quarter, or 20% and lower, let's say 19, 18, 17% gross margin, I think we're probably going to see some more pain in the market.
It was 1% and 2%. So you took these very large price cuts. Consumers reacted to them, I'm sure, strongly initially. And yet seasonal growth was pretty in line with historical levels. And as we look forward, inventory grew, so they weren't able to sell everything that they made. As Phil mentioned, we're going to have lower incentives or lower credits from IRA, for sure, on the standard range Model 3, potentially on other models. We're waiting to hear exactly what those credits will be. And if we look at lead times for vehicles, other than the Model Y in the US, you can get a Tesla within 2 to 4 weeks pretty well anywhere in the world. So there isn't much backlog.
I actually think that's quite a positive point. You guys know for the last 2 years, I've been screaming how annoying it is that if you order a Tesla today, you're waiting 3 months for it. Like, that should not be the case. You know, when we ordered our car in December 2020 and we waited 2.5, 3 weeks for it, back then no one was talking about shrinking demand. I mean, look at how many deliveries Tesla has grown from then. It's just a matter of just-in-time manufacturing, and I think Tesla is trying to find that medium day to day of where that is.
As I mentioned, there are about 100,000 cars in inventory right now. And so it doesn't feel like demand is fantastic right now. And my guess is, as we progress through the year and there's more and more competition, there are 150 new EVs launching in China alone this year, Tesla will likely have to lower prices to make sure it hits its volume targets.
Yeah, you're lead.
And to be fair, he was 100% right, because they did lower prices a couple of days ago.
Time charts in your report today, Tony, are interesting. And you say that you think that the competition has deep pockets and are not going to back off. Some auto analysts argued that it's that conflict between the ICE business and the EV business that's going to create really tough choices for legacy automakers. Why do you think that's not the case?
What?
I don't disagree that there will be tough choices, Carl. I ultimately think at the end of the day, though, companies are being valued on the future, and the future is electric vehicles. And so you've had companies like Ford say, we're going to get to 2 million electric vehicles by 2026.
2 million electric vehicles by 2026. Let's add in a couple of years for legacy auto time. 2028, they're selling a couple million vehicles. I don't know.
And I think, quite frankly, that's come hell or high water. Yes, they lost $2 billion in electric vehicles this year, but they made more than $10 billion in operating profit in their ICE businesses.
But that's exactly the negative point. If the only way they're making money is by a business that is literally being outlawed, right? In almost all North American jurisdictions, there's a end death date to gas car sales. 2035 here. California might be earlier than that. Actually, I think it's still 2035 there too. There's a terminal date for that portion of your business. How much is that business worth if there's a actual death date for it?
So they can continue to subsidize that business. And the market is basically saying, unless you're credible in EVs, we don't want to give you any kind of valuation. And so I think you are going to see leading OEMs like the Volkswagens of the world, like Ford, like GM, who have pretty robust cash flows from their legacy businesses. If they have to take down overall profitability to show that they can be viable in EVs, I think that's the choice they're going to make.
Okay, hold on. So he's saying Ford, GM, Volkswagen can take their cash flow from their ICE business to fund losing lost leaders in EVs to show the market that they're serious. But wait, when Tesla lowers prices, all of a sudden it's the end of the world. When we know Tesla is 20% plus gross margins on their cars, net profit 15+%. But hold on. That analogy, though, for GM, Volkswagen using their cash flows to fund their lost leaders in EVs, I mean, that's like saying, you have the bathtub filling up with water, and the water is the cash flow coming from these ICE businesses, but we know that the water is about to run out. The plumber just turned off the water supply from the basement. You have 2 more seconds worth of water coming up into the tub. You're not going to fill this thing up. How are you going to fill this thing up in 10 years from now? There's a lot of questions I have here.
On the other hand, there's a narrative, Tony, that Tesla's leading the pack on the price cuts, and it's hurting the other automakers even worse than it's hurting Tesla, while at the same time they have some pretty ambitious plans to ramp up production in Mexico. They've got the first mover advantage, and the deliveries today show that the price cuts are actually working.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think price cuts in a hyper-competitive industry is generally bad news for everyone. So, last year, Tesla's automotive gross margins were 27%. This year, I think consensus thinks they're going to be 21.5%. And that, and again, we think there could be incremental price cuts. So Tesla is certainly feeling the impact from its own price cuts, and certainly other vendors are. And that's the dynamic that we worry about, is in a really competitive industry where price matters, price cuts are detrimental to total industry profitability. And I think that's what we're starting to see and will continue to see. And that includes Tesla and other incumbents. The good or bad news, I guess, if you're other OEMs, is they're pretty deep pocketed.
Wait, did he say Tesla's deep pocketed? Because that would make more sense. Hold on.
And that includes Tesla and other incumbents. The good or bad news, I guess, if you're other OEMs, is they're pretty deep pocketed.
Yeah, so he's talking about Tesla being deep pocketed. Exactly. So I mean, here's the bottom line. Tesla can cut these prices to take up market share from dying breeds of cars, gas cars. Here's the thing. Whether you agree with it or don't, gas cars are being literally outlawed. This has, I feel like this point gets missed, right? They're literally being outlawed, right? Like the government is saying, no, you're not allowed to sell this thing anymore. Here's the date. They're dead. Okay? They're dead. Now, fast forward to that date. Who is selling EVs at any massive scale in North America, let's say? Let's just focus on North America for a second. I don't know, really. So what I think is going to happen is, number one, either Tesla has to take up a large portion of that market share, or number two, and this is what I'm actually more scared about, to be honest, and I've tweeted about this before, is this whole issue about lowering the definition of EV to electrified. And hey, why don't we just throw in a 6 kilowatt hour battery pack into this gas car? And guess what? Let's call it electrified. Toyota's doing this crap, right? Toyota's throwing like a 5 kilowatt battery pack into the RAV4s or whatever and saying, hey, what a sick electrified vehicle we have, right? This is the problem. Goalposts are going to shift because there's no one else that can fulfill that demand that's going to be there. So either Tesla's the only sheriff in town in a lot of these cases in North America, let's say. Let's just focus on North America. Or the goalposts are going to move. And I feel like the goalposts are going to move. So that's the risk side to it. Digital saying Jim's going to take charge. Yeah, exactly. So ICE is dead way before 2035, even 2030. Well, here's the thing that Mark's bringing up. Consumer habits might change massively to a point where if you're a consumer and it's 2028 and you're going, hold on, these cars are going to be outlawed, extinct in less than a decade. Yeah, maybe some will have antique value, let's say, right? Like you bought the car right before the cutoff of gas car sales and, but for the most part, you're like, hold on, gas stations are going to slowly start to die off. You know, I'm not going to have the same amount of auto mechanics because auto mechanics are going to say, why would I want to specialize in gas cars when I can focus on EVs because that's where the future is? Hold on, I'm going to start to have a dying breed of service over the long term, right? So you're going to start to have these conversations of people. Dirk says plug-in hybrids and EV hybrid sales have decreased by over 30. Dirk, please tell me the data on that. I am very intrigued by that data metric. By decreased by over 30%, really. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's the thing. Gas cars are expensive, like you say, to maintain, right? Gas cars are expensive to maintain. People don't realize that. By the way, speaking of which, let's get into our next video. This is Tesla market shares dropping as competition in the EV market heats up. This is Dan Nathan on CNBC's Fast Money. Let's see what he has to say.
Growing. Tesla's piece of it appears to be falling. A new report from Axios showing Tesla's share shrinking by 18 percentage points in the last year. A report from S&P Global Mobility says it could fall below 50% in the next couple of months. The biggest winner as Tesla loses ground, GM.
I'm sorry. Are we not like 2 seconds away from that report? Please, someone tweet me that report that said how many EVs GM sold or how many Hummers and oh my God.
Overtaking Ford.
I'm gonna have to listen to this again.
The biggest winner as Tesla loses ground, GM. Overtaking Ford for the #2 spot. It's Bolt sedan grabbing 10% of the market. Tesla down more than 3% today, down 10% this week. Karen.
I'm sorry. Look, I don't even try to make fun of GM and Ford. I don't. You guys know this. I'm very like, hey, let's aim for the success of all EVs out there, right? I'm very much like that. But man, you just can't make up this script.
GM is winning.
Well, winning. I don't know that I would call it winning.
Okay, so they're also in on this. 2 Hummers sold in the quarter. Thank you, Chris.
But I mean, they've got to get it together. So maybe they're starting slowly.
Sorry, I'm going to keep pausing this. I'm going to go back, listen to the laughs in the back when they say GM is winning.
Karen. GM is winning.
Well, winning. I don't know that I would call it winning, but I mean, they've got to get it together. So maybe they're starting slowly, and we saw GM ahead of Ford, but you know, they've got to scale massively, several 100,000 cars a year. But once you said who's winning if Tesla's losing, I thought you were going to say Dan.
That is the beauty of actually the Tesla story. We know that they pushed adoption of EVs fairly dramatically, right? And so like now everybody is winning because the pie is that much bigger. So it makes sense that their market share is going to come in. What I think is really interesting, you just mentioned the Chevy Bolt. Okay, so that is this kind of mid to low end EV. Okay, and that's something that I think is going to appeal to the mass market. That's what Tesla always wanted to do. They wanted to start with the high end, the Model S, and then they wanted to move into this kind of mid to low end thing. What's interesting, I took a couple things away from this survey. The Model S is down 75% in registrations from January 2022. So that speaks to the higher end, the Germans and some of these higher end Japanese really making inroads over there. So the battle is really going to be fought in this mid to low end range. And this is where Detroit does well. This is where
Oh my God.
The Koreans do well. This is where the Japanese do well. So to me, I just think it's not a foregone conclusion that Tesla's going to win this race from here on out.
Okay. Detroit does well in the auto business, but with gas cars. This is the point that again people are missing. It's, you know, to build a gas car and to build an EV car, I mean, yeah, you both have doors, you both have windows, steering wheel. But I mean, seats, right? But I mean, that's pretty much where the similarities end, right? Like, it's crazy to think, and I feel like this is still the prevalent thought out there that people just say, well, if I can build gas cars, I can build EVs. Like, it's the same thing. It's not going to be any different. Why wouldn't these automakers just figure it out? And I guess this is what they still miss at the end of the day. Jay, thank you so much for this. GM battery electric vehicle sales in quarter one. The Cadillac Lyriq 968. The Chevy Bolt 19,700, up from 358 a year ago. Remember last year they had the massive recall that everyone had to go and switch up their battery packs from. GMC Hummer EV pickup 2, down from 99 a year ago. Wonder what happened. So total of 20,670, up from 500 last year. Thank you, Jay. Folks, it's just hilarious, this entire thing, right? This entire thing is hilarious. Tesla sold, 422,000 BEVs last quarter. They are not the same. They're just built different. That's it. That's the end of the day. Were those 2 Hummers sold to customers or just dealers? Yeah, no kidding. Seriously. Okay, so that was market share. Tesla's losing everything. Forget about it. GM and Ford, hallelujah, baby. This is Dan Ives, friend of the show. Dan's been on a couple of times. Shout out to Dan. This is Dan saying we're in the early innings of a green tidal wave for Tesla.
Though that they did fall short of the pace that's needed to attain that goal that Musk laid out in terms of 50% annual growth. Is that still attainable?
But I mean, Sarah, I think 50% was really something they took off the table on the last earnings. I mean, now, granted, the longer term 50% goal, but really the number that the street investors are focused on is 1.8 million. And I think if you look at that, they are on or actually ahead of that pace. And that's why right now, of course, there's a lot of bulls and bears in terms of that tug of war. Despite the stock doing what it's doing, I think the bulls ultimately won this battle.
But Dan, ultimately, it comes down to this price action. I mean, we're talking about a market cap almost 3 times Toyota.
Okay. How many times do we have to face the same arguments?
$602 billion for Tesla, $231 billion for Toyota.
Okay, hold on. Do I have to show that tweet of Tesla beating out Toyota's EBITDA last quarter? Was that quarter 4 now?
Is that even near justified with the demand we're seeing for Tesla?
Look, and that's always the debate, right? I mean, if you look going back to Tesla Mini, they hated it at $5 billion. They despised it at $1 trillion and pulled the hair out at $600 billion. I mean, I just have always viewed it as a disruptive technology player and not a traditional auto player. That's why I view apples to oranges when you compare them just to the like
Juju. He just mentioned some Juju
of a Toyota or others. I believe they deserve more of a disruptive tech multiple. And I think that's what you've seen happen to the stock, especially over the last few months. Now, with that said, they're held to a higher standard and they need to continue to produce. But I still think we're in the early innings of this green tidal wave playing out.
Oh, green tidal wave. Got a drink to that.
A $5 trillion market in terms of EVs.
Dan, what about the price cuts? Clearly, they are helping sales right now. Now there's talk of further price cuts ahead. Do you buy that, given the fact, and put it in your own words, the murky macro picture right now?
Look, but they've had to ultimately rip the Band-Aid off. I think that was the smart poker move that Musk did earlier this year. It's a big reason why the stock's up. Now, of course, the debate will be, do they need to do more price cuts? I think in China, you'll see some more slight price cuts, potentially in the U.S. as well as the arms race plays out. But because of their margin structure, it gives them so much more flexibility than other vendors to do these price cuts. And I think that really continues to be the story here, especially as battery costs ultimately get reduced over the coming months and years.
This is a big point for this earnings call, folks, is Tesla's gross margin. Because if Tesla does all of these price drops that we've seen and still comes up with 20% plus gross margins, that'll bode real well. Now, if Tesla comes out and they're in the 16, 17, 18 area of gross margins, I still think it's going to be ugly for perception. People are going to say, look, Tesla's already in the mid-teens for gross margins now, and they might have to do more price cuts, is what the street will say. So I think Tesla coming out with high gross margins this quarter is kind of the key metric to look at with how the stock may react moving forward. It's kind of the question that everyone has is with this quarter is how the earnings is actually going to play out. Production and delivery is great. I mean, sure. Would we have liked 20,000, 30,000 more deliveries? Sure. But I mean, they are in transit. They will be sold. The question is really, how does that come to the bottom line for Tesla and their gross margins? And is the bull thesis of cost reductions that are happening actually something that is playing out in front of our eyes, or is that just a pipe dream for now? These are the questions that we're facing moving forward. And at 185, sitting on Tesla, And I told you guys last week, if you guys watched the stream last Sunday, I said, watch out for us getting slapped off of the 200-day moving average, right? $215 was our 200-day moving average. We got up as high as 210-ish, pretty much got slapped right off. And as we sit here right now, we've actually closed below the 9 and the 21. So for all intents and purposes, what I see here is still a downward trajectory moving forward into next week. It's going to be something to monitor. But again, this 200-day moving average is a tough cookie to crack as we move forward. So, yes. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not entirely sure how macro is going to play out. And I think I should dedicate some time to macro here as we end off this stream. I'm going to dedicate a couple minutes here to macro. Thank you, Messi. Appreciate that. Hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're new, if you're enjoying the content. Macro. Okay. Guess what's happening this week? Anyone want to tell me in the comments before I spill the beans myself? I'll wait after I've asked. What's happening this week, specifically Wednesday, that we care about macro-wise? And I'll pull up my little handy dandy. There it is. Gabby, shout out to you. First one coming in. PPI and CPI, baby. Yes, indeed, Gabby. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about this week. This week is going to be massive. And to end off this week as well, and I see more comments coming in here. To end off the week as well, guess what? We have bank earnings. Bank earnings. What do we have this week? The Fed screwing over everyone as usual. Yeah, no kidding. So just keep that in mind. This week is going to be very, very, very macro driven, right? CPI, PPI, bank earnings happening. No one is going to care about, for the most part, what's happening with this stock or that stock story or this stock story. Everything is going to fall in line with macro, as it has pretty much for the last year and a half, 2 years. But this week specifically is going to be very macro driven. So I think I kind of look at this week in two parts. Up until CPI, after CPI. Up until CPI, who knows? Maybe we melt up a little bit. Maybe we see some strong bull action. Maybe we see some shorts being. Maybe we start seeing some shorts covering into Wednesday. But I think post Wednesday is going to be interesting. Again, remember, the Fed doesn't really care about CPI as much as they care about PCE. But it's one of those metrics I think that the headlines like to run with and is very big for sentiment. We also get the Fed meeting minutes, I believe, this week as well. So we're going to start to see the inside workings of how they're thinking behind this general pivot that everyone thinks is coming up, or the pause at the very least that everyone thinks is coming up after this Fed meeting next month. So it's a huge week macro-wise. And if you look at the NASDAQ, which I've pulled up here, you'll see that the NASDAQ actually broke above the 300-day moving average and the 200-day a long time ago, but the 300-day moving average for the first time in a long time this week, or in the last couple of weeks, right? It had traded since pretty much last April below the 300-day, and now we've broken back up. And let's see if this can be start of a new general bull trend, or if the banking crisis is going to rear its ugly head again moving into next week. This is going to be, I think, what we have to go through. This is what it's going to be short-term ugly, uncertainty. But the way I look at Tesla is, I don't want to say it, but I look at this gap right here as well. By the way, this gap from January, end of January, when we jumped up from 145 to 160 after the earnings. Should we break below 165, 167, this little baseline down here? That's the next level that I kind of look at on the downside. But we shall see. Most times when we think it's going to be a rough week, it's usually an awesome week, and vice versa. So, who's to say what's going to happen here? Rolex saying expectations are 5.2% from 6% in February. Feels like a huge drop. Thank you for that. Look, I think if you do the math on month over month and you annualize that, I think we're right in line with the Fed's long-term expectation for inflation. But again, the question really is, these one or two one-off reports that we've been getting about jumping up of inflation randomly, those have not been awesome for sentiment for the market. So I guess we'll see where everything goes by. We shall see. But here's I'll kind of leave everything with good news, right? It is going to be a shorter week. So in general, shorter weeks, we're going to see lower volume. So we're not going to see probably some massive moves happen. Might see some volatility, but I don't think we're going to see some massive moves happen. It is going to be interesting to see. And thank you, by the way, Matt, for throwing that in here. April 12th, which is Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So I guess we'll see. But here's the good news is we know inflation pretty much is, you talk about not getting the genie back in the bottle, pretty much is almost close to back in the bottle. But again, the Fed controls everything. And I still think the Fed does not care about anything other than destroying everything around the markets and the job market before they move on and they actually pause, which is insane. It's actually insane. You guys know I'm quite frustrated with the Fed, but I guess we'll see what will happen ahead. Thank you guys for joining me on an awesome Sunday. Happy Easter live stream. I'll play the rock music to play me out. I hope everyone has an awesome week ahead. Remember, markets are closed tomorrow, right? Or at least they are here in Canada. Let me just pull that up here. Impromptu. No, they're not. Okay. I guess we're good. Okay, so markets were just closed on Friday for Good Friday. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe. I almost want it to be a shorter week, but I hope everyone has an awesome week ahead. Stay blessed, stay happy, do your exercises, prioritize your mental health, physical health. Go connect with family. Go get a dog. Go for a walk. Do whatever you want. I appreciate you guys tuning in for an awesome stream that I had. Much love. Yash signing off. Peace.